Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, one and all, to the Do Dissidents podcast, the Morning Dew edition. My name is Keaton Weiss here, of course, with Russell Dobular.
Tumble out of bed and I stumble to the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition.
Hello. Thanks for waking up with us this morning. Appreciate it. What's going on with this thing here? There we go. Okay, that was annoying me. Sorry. Problem on the back end. Waking the tech up. Everything's early. Everything is early. We got 142 of you guys in here. That's wonderful to see. 70 over on Rumble. That's great. So a crowd of 200 plus overall. We love to see that. Please, folks, it is especially important this morning to hit that like button. We need a little help from the algorithm because we're just getting this new time slot started. And so the more you hit that like button, the more people we can get in here. But thank you very much. It's exciting to be up in the morning. It's a different vibe, a different mood. I have two kids and my wife works at a hospital. I'm up at 5:30 every day anyway, so it's not a big deal for me to be up early. But it's nice. It's nice. You feel fresh. You feel rested. You feel ready to go. You feel like you're actually doing a job when you do this in the morning,
Yeah, the first thing I do when I get up is open the curtains because I find it helps with the crippling depression. And then so I did that, and then I was like, oh shit, I got to close them again.
Right.
We're doing a show. Oh, you know what? I just realized I never even put my stage lighting on.
Does this show help with the crippling depression, or does this show cause the crippling depression, the subject matter?
It depends what we're covering.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Maybe some of both. Some of both. The gossip stories, I think, give me crippling depression. So this Anna thing, everyone in this space is going to be dining out on this for the next year.
I know. Hey, every once in a while, a story comes up that you can just keep going back to. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, what's funny is everybody in the opposition, breaking away from TYT. Look, we're in this space, man. I mean, you know what the fuck you're doing. You're milking this shit. All of them are doing their takes. All of them are, and especially Olay. She doesn't like drama. She has not stopped talking about this for days.
For days.
And I watched that entire Anna interview. It wasn't about you.
Right.
It was not about you. It's not like they spent 2 hours shit talking you.
No, look, everyone's getting fat off of this. Congratulations to the Vanguard boys. They reached 27,000 subscribers again. So they finally, 1 year after the Aaron Mate interview, have gotten back to where they were a year ago. Yes. They made all those subscribers back. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
I noticed that. Yeah. They did. It took appearances on Left Mafia, being named on Politico, being named on The Hill, Olay pumping them up.
To get back to where they were.
Being on a certain side in this war with the, grandfather of alternative media. Out of all that, they gained a few hundred subs.
Right. And got back to where they were before they did the Mate thing. So that's wonderful. Congratulations to our friends over there. But yeah, this is really exciting. Thank you very much to all of you guys for being here. Thanks to all our patrons, our Substack subscribers. You all make this possible. We are able to add this stream thanks to your support. This is when I would normally be in the car driving people's Dunkin' Donuts around. Instead, I can be here because of all the support that we've gotten. So thank you guys very much. I see we got some super chats already. That's fantastic. All of that makes this project sustainable, makes the expansion possible. We could not have added this show without you guys, especially Russell. Fridays, summer in the city.
I had to blow off a gig.
Right.
Tusker almost wound up in this seat.
Yeah, we almost had to pull in Tusker for the co-hosting today, but that's why your support is so vital, and we thank you for it so much. It is what allows us to do these streams rather than guide tours and drive people's food around. So we got some topics here that we're going to get to in a moment. I want to start just taking this super chat from Patrick Donahue, who I hope you're watching live now in the chat, my friend. You said this would be your first full-length live stream that you get to watch in its entirety. Given that you are over there in Ireland, congrats on the new shelf, Russell. The old one looked a little ocean-gatey from everyone's liking. Thanks for the show at the new time. Great stuff. You're welcome. Thank you.
You know, there were a lot of people who were saying things about safety and regulations, but that's how they hold back the entrepreneurial spirit.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
That's why I made the shelf supports out of cornflakes.
Right. Exactly. Mr. Fancy Pants, thanks for the $4.99. This time slot will work good for me because I usually end up catching up on the streams the next morning at work anyway. Well, there you go. This is the idea. We had to add a third stream. We can't really add a third nightly stream. And we can't do Saturday mornings because nobody's really around Saturday morning. So a weekday drive time slot figured to be the only real way we can add. And we can't really do mid-afternoon streams either because that would lose us the whole workday, which we cannot afford to do yet. But maybe someday we will. We just got to keep growing, keep building, and your help is very, very much appreciated in that pursuit. All right, let's get to work, shall we? First story we have here, a little bit of horse race news here from 2024. Latest GOP primary poll has Trump maintaining a steady lead over Ron DeSanctimonious, 56-22. And we're starting to see some of the conservative media, including in this case Fox News, start making electability arguments a bit early. So let's go to this piece of sound. This is Brit Hume on Fox News responding to this poll.
Still with that wide lead, 56% to Ron DeSantis at 22, Ramaswamy at 5, Pence at 4, and down the list from there. Are Donald Trump's opponents running a conventional campaign, and is there anything they should be doing differently to change this dynamic?
Well, to look at the persistence of Trump's lead, and it's been in this range for many, many weeks now, you'd almost believe that the old rules of politics about how you win elections have been repealed, and Mr. Trump does not have to abide by them. Indeed, he doesn't. He continually talks about how he didn't lose in 2020, which is, most people believe he did lose. I guess a lot of his hardcore supporters do not. But it's hornbook politics, that you're supposed to. You're supposed to talk about the future, and the elections are not about the past, they're about the future. Well, Trump doesn't seem to care about that, and look at where he stands. The other candidates are doing the conventional things, and the numbers haven't budged. Now, maybe they will, but they look pretty daunting in Trump's favor right now. I'm not sure how long that'll last, but it's lasted a long time so far.
Yep.
All right, so he has a follow-up question. On the question of, hey, are the old rules of politics no longer in place? Yeah, I think that was pretty much settled 7 years ago, was it not? Like, it's amazing to have this deja vu, right? We're going to show a couple clips from around the 2016 era later. A bit of a nostalgic theme to the show. Simpler times, right? Simpler times. This whole question of, well, have the rules of the game changed? Well, yeah, of course they've changed. They found cocaine at the White House now. And it's not even like, it's not even like this major scandal. This is the thing. They thought that Trump would usher in this era of accountability, this different era in politics. No, it just does the exact opposite. It just makes everything okay, right? If there were cocaine found in Bill Clinton's White House, I mean, forget about it. That would be all everybody's talking about. Cocaine at the White House. Now, whatever. No one really cares that much. I mean, it's kind of interesting as a palace intrigue story, but yeah, the rules have absolutely changed. I thought we were clear on that.
Yeah, Brit Hume is old, and I think there are, I mean, we'll get into this, but I think there are enough people like him who want to see order restored to get to put some wind in DeSantis's sails when you combine it with Trump's problems, which are only, I feel, going to become more relevant as the year goes on.
All right, well, let's get to the follow-up here about electability.
Part of his challenger's argument is that if you go back to the 2018 election, every 2 years with Trump as the either titular head or actual head of the Republican Party, Republicans have underperformed in those national elections. And yet, when you look at the polling, it shows that Republican voters believe that he's going to win. And part of the appeal of Donald Trump is that he is a winner. Where does that disconnect go, and how can Trump's opponents make that case that perhaps on winnability that's an issue?
Well, those losses in the midterms and eventually the presidency are not are disappointing performances and losses. They're real. They happened. There's no doubt about it. There's no way around it. And the case can be made that he's a loser because since he got elected in 2016, he's compiled a string of them. Either he or his supported candidates have lost too many races. But the history of primaries suggests that people don't cast strategic votes in favor of the candidate they think most likely will win. By and large, they don't. And right now, people are voting their hearts, and they tend to vote in primaries for the candidates that they feel closest to, or that they'd like to see president. They're not.
Now, that is especially true, of course, in Republican primaries. Of course, Democratic primaries, the conventional wisdom about electability and acceptability and palatability to the general population is what typically wins the day. That has not won the day in 2016, and that was a big shock. But Republicans used to feel this way up until now. That's why they nominated McCain. That's why they nominated Romney. It's why they nominated George W. Bush. They weren't particularly thrilled with any of those three people. They did it because Fox News told them to. So now Fox News is telling them again, DeSantis. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that was the old saying. Republicans fall in line, Democrats fall in love.
Right.
And now it's the opposite.
Complete opposite. Yep.
It's the complete opposite. Now the thought leaders of the wannabe thought leaders, you have to call them at this point, of the Republican Party, want to have this power, but they really don't. However, a lot of people talk about the polling. So I pulled this up while we were showing that. I just want to show you who was winning in 1991 at this point. Mario Cuomo was going to be the next president in 1992, or Gary Hart. Some of you might remember Gary Hart went down in a sex scandal. I mean, if you're going to go down, that's the way to go down, right? That wound up being Dukakis. Mondale was a VP, as we know. Unless your name's Kamala Harris, that's very hard not to get the nomination from being VP. Wallace, Kennedy, and we wound up with Carter, Muskie, McGovern. Kennedy was the front runner, and he wound up getting the nomination. So it's really no indication who's leading in polling right now. Like there are reasons to say that Trump will be the nominee, but that's not the reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are other reasons why I'm getting more bearish on DeSantis. I wouldn't say by the day, but by the week. I mean, the fact that we're seeing not a lot of movement now, I think, is something, especially since, he has come out of the gate pretty on message. But let's let this finish. I think he's almost done.
About who's they think could get elected. That may come back to haunt the Republican Party in 2024 because you look at the Democrats and what they think of the race. They think that Trump is going to win the nomination, and they think Biden will beat him because he did beat him.
All right. So, look,
that always good to see you this evening.
That is not totally inaccurate. I think Democratic insiders do feel a certain confidence that they can just beat Trump because of all of the negative partisanship that Trump invites.
Maybe.
I mean, that gives Biden a chance against him. The Electoral College is this thing that we always feel like, oh, the Electoral College favors the GOP. No, not really. I mean, if the Democrats just do the basic blocking and tackling, the Electoral College is pretty favorable to Democrats. I mean, the upper Midwest, if you hold that, it's pretty difficult to lose. Even as it stands right now, Trump would have to flip Georgia, Arizona, and either Wisconsin or Pennsylvania. And so, that's not easy to do. The map has changed so much since those days that we were looking at. I mean, back when I was growing up, back when you were my age, if you won Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, that was it. You couldn't lose. And Trump won all three of those last time, and he still lost. So there is a reshuffling of the map in that way, but it's still tough for a Republican to break through in the Electoral College because they have to crack that blue wall in the upper Midwest, especially now that the Democrats have pretty much permanently flipped Virginia and Colorado. So, Biden can beat Trump. This is the thing. Like, I'm not as certain as a lot of people that Biden will lose to Trump. It's almost impossible for me to see Biden beating DeSantis just because so many just intrinsic qualities that apolitical people tend to value, like age, competence, stability, right? Those all just favor DeSantis so heavily. He's going to get so much of the, I don't really follow politics, but it doesn't seem like Biden could do the job anymore, right? Like, he's going to dominate that vote. Whereas with Trump won't dominate that vote because people know Trump is a fucking unstable lunatic as well.
As I've often pointed out, look at how DeSantis performed with those suburban voters who went for Biden in 2020. He was the only one in the midterms who had a total rout. He was the only one who had the predicted red wave. It only happened within his state. I always say this, and actually we decided not to focus on this because it's kind of a different topic, but David Dole did a thing attacking TYT for claiming specifically that LGBTQ and trans issues hurt Democratic politicians, and he showed how they did in the midterms. He literally never said the words Roe v. Wade in this entire 20-minute diatribe about the midterms. He never said that once. And he never talked about Florida. I mean, the people in Florida certainly knew what DeSantis's cultural positions were by the time they voted in those midterms. How did he flip Democratic counties like that? His smile, his personality. I mean, he's kind of infamously a stiff, right? I mean, it certainly wasn't his charisma. So what were these Democrats voting for? So yes, is this a case where the Republican Party might be in a position where the person best poised to win the primary is not the person who's best poised to win the general election? It could be. I guess I feel like in the end, the Republicans like to win. And I suspect that all it's really going to take to collapse the Trump phenomena is going to be his being humiliated on a debate stage. I do not believe anyone who says Ron DeSantis is Jeb Bush is not paying attention.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're right about that last part, that DeSantis is certainly more competent and a more formidable opponent than really any of the 2016 rivals. How it shakes out, we will see. I want to just bring this up. This is not a super chat, but I want to respond to this. Keaton's mainlining hopium. No hopium here. I've said on the show before, I think Trump is the lesser evil to Biden. So I wouldn't be rooting for Joe Biden to win in a rematch. Not at all. I mean, I'm not going to vote for Trump, obviously. I'm going to vote for Cornel West. But no hopium there. I'm not telling you what I want to happen. Like I said, I think on World War III alone, Trump is the lesser evil. So I'm just telling you what I think. You cannot predict a Biden-Trump race. There's just too many unknowns. There's too many unknowns between all the legal stuff with Trump and is Biden going to literally collapse and not be able to run? Are people just going to be too afraid of Trump again? I doubt that. Like I said, Trump goes in the favorite, but it's not a done deal, Trump versus Biden. DeSantis versus Biden is pretty much a done deal, I think.
I agree because his performance in those suburban counties in Florida, I believe, would be reflected in a lot of the country.
Well, yeah, because DeSantis is tailor-made to the swing, to the affluent white suburban swing counties.
That's it.
Across several different states. Right. Like, he is the candidate. Like, if that's where these elections are going to be won and lost, he is the candidate best suited to drive up margins in those counties and flip some of them from light blue, to light red. Yeah, it's a matter of, can he get there?
Whereas if it's Trump, yeah, you get a lot.
Trump,
of
you're gonna have the same dynamic.
You get a lot of negative partisanship.
Right. A lot of those white moderate Karens are not going to vote for Trump. They'll stick with, whatever. So that is a real difference, I think, potentially. We will see.
Maybe I could urge them to join me in supporting Dave Chappelle.
Right. Exactly. Speaking of DeSantis in Florida, Russell has some news, some midsummer news, some July 4th weekend numbers from the Disney theme parks. So do you want to bring that up here?
Yeah, little Disney update, because the one thing they had going for them was the parks. They're losing, I think, $1 billion a month on Disney Plus. It's either a month or a quarter. I think they're losing $1 billion a month on Disney Plus. Their movies are just bombing one after the other. They're losing hundreds of millions of dollars on Quantumania, on Elementals. Now Indiana Jones is going to be it looks like one of the biggest flops in history. Little Mermaid, because of the international box office, I think they broke even or maybe made a slight profit. So they're getting killed. I mean, they're just bleeding money. The one bright spot was the theme parks, which I suspected eventually we're going to feel the impact. If the audience, if your brand is becoming toxic that way, how can it not eventually affect your flagship theme parks? It looks like that's happening now. So Disney World had the slowest 4th of July in a decade and the lowest waits all year. It was hot and crowds were low this 4th of July at Walt Disney World. Normally a magnet for locals and out-of-state and international tourists alike, the 4th of July at Disney World wasn't the draw that it was in years past, as the trend of a slow summer continues. As you can see in the graph below from thrillldata.com, 2023 was the slowest July 4th in the past 10 years at Walt Disney World by average wait time across all 4 Disney World theme parks. Walt Disney World attractions averaged a 24-minute wait on the 4th of July. That makes it the slowest day of 2023, something that might be considered an impossibility in years past. So you can see in this graph, they've just been trending down. And if you look overall...
So that black line, just so everybody knows here, scroll back up, that thick black line is this year.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then down here, this is year-over-year performance. And you can see the parks are just trending down overall. That was inevitable. There was another article where they interviewed people at the park saying Disney wasn't patriotic enough. They should have, they wanted more rah-rah, I'm proud to be an American. They wanted that, and, all they got was a fireworks show. So this is part of the problem that the brand is having overall, I think. Who has more kids? Who has more kids? Conservative people in Tennessee or liberals in the Northeast? Who has more kids? They have their only children that they helicopter parent. And then these people out in Arkansas got 7 kids they got playing with snakes out in the land they got out back. Okay?
$100 a pop, baby, plus the food and the drink. I mean, forget it, man. They make bank off, you get those families in there.
Well, there's that too. They made it really expensive. Although now they're offering deals and it's not bringing people back because they've done to a lesser extent. I believe Disney has created negative associations with its brand. It's not to the extent of Bud Light. Like Bud Light is done. Like they've stigmatized their brand to the point they'll never recover. Disney, though, with repeatedly projecting that they are not only not willing to try to serve more conservative family audiences, but that they're openly hostile to those audiences. I mean, they've made that very clear. Well, what did you think was going to happen? They were going to keep bringing their families to Disney World? Of course not. You've given it a certain Bud Light stigma in that crowd. I mean, you worked very hard to do it. It didn't happen overnight. It happened over years, but now I think this is a reflection of that.
Well, what do they call Disney World? They call it the happiest place in the world, right? And part of that is the fact that it is just this apolitical place.
That's
right?
what it was. Yes.
And not only that, but it's this kind of retro place, right? You know, there's something very analog about it. Like the Pirates of the Caribbean ride is cool.
Right.
It's like that ride. I don't know when it was built, but you look like you're in the 70s when you're down there, right? Like it's not super high tech. Some of the rides are. They add new stuff, but there's this element of like nostalgia, right, and sort of reverence for tradition that's there and things like that. And you know, not only is a lot of that kind of disappearing with the times, but there's just not a lot of good new contents to sort of keep updating the brands, you know, in a way that's going to keep bringing people in. When was the last iconic Disney movie that came out? Like the last really good one that came out was like Inside Out was a fantastically good movie. But even it's hard to brand that as a ride. I mean, you probably could, but like when are we like there are none of these like, you know, Toy Story type, just classic films coming out.
Probably the last new original, not a reboot kind of IP they came up with that became kind of a new classic was probably Frozen.
Yeah, it's true. That
was probably the last one.
That was a sensation, right? Because of the song and everything. Yes, absolutely. Right. And in fact, yes, you are right. That was the last one. Inside Out, though, you would absolutely love it. It was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, because
you should watch it because you're a bit of a curmudgeon with the Disney stuff lately. It'd be good for you to watch a good Disney movie.
I'm not a curmudgeon with it. I feel like it reflects broader trends. It's easier to examine it through Disney. We said on Sunday we'll get into this. Like, you know, Disney is being sued for underpaying its female employees, and now that's turning into a class action lawsuit. It's going from like 150 million to like a $300 million lawsuit against them.
It's a terrible labor situation. Like even at the parks, like I know a couple of tour guides who used to work at the parks. They used to live down there. And they were saying one of the reasons they left is that there's no room for growth within the company. Like they'll let you work at the parks for a few years and then they'll cycle you out. Like you can't really climb a ladder there.
Right.
It's not labor friendly at all. You know, because
they've always been known for that.
No, they've always been. Because I was thinking when I went to the parks last, it was like 6 or 7 years ago. I went out to LA, saw my uncle, and we took my, she's not my niece, she's my cousin, but she's young enough to be my niece. I'm thinking, man, like if this is your thing, like the parks are not really my thing. I don't mind them. But if this is your thing, what a great place to work. Like, what a great place to just come every day for your whole life. But you can't. They cycle employees out. They make it very, very difficult.
They don't want
to actually make a living just working with Disney at those parks. Yeah.
No, Disney is really, if you look at what they do, they don't give a fuck about their employees, and all of the cultural signaling they're doing goes right out the window when they're marketing films overseas. They'll cut out, they'll put in LGBTQ content, they'll cut it out for certain markets, they'll cover up black characters on their posters for certain markets. So they're not at all what they present themselves as. All of this is about ESG score. Disney having a high ESG score is like Exxon having a high ESG score, which it does, right? As long as you give the right signaling, that's the problem with ESG. If it were really what it purports to be, would it do some good? Maybe. We can debate that. But what it is in operation is what rich people would want it to be. All signaling, no substance.
Right.
The Vanguard, BlackRock, they don't actually want an underlying change in the substance of how corporations have to operate. They want signaling that they can say to their investors, yes, we supported this green initiative while we're drilling for oil out back.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. All right, folks, we're going to read some super chats and put our Patreon up on the screen. Shows like this, the new morning shows, are made possible by our Patreon and paid Substack supporters. You can also click that join button underneath the YouTube screen and join there. Super chats are, of course, very helpful, as are Rumble rants. We got a nice audience in there on Rumble, 108 strong. That's what we love to see. Rumble rants we will read as well. So all that support goes to creating more content like these morning shows, which we're very excited to launch today. I thought that Disney segment came out good. That's one of the benefits of doing this show in the morning. Like at 8:40, I wouldn't have had the energy to keep that conversation going. I'd be like, okay, all right, Disney parks down. All right, let's go. Let's go. Now I'm chipper. Now I'm up. Now, all right, we could talk Disney for a little bit.
This is your time. This is
your
morning person.
That AM testosterone rush, I feel like I got more energy, more ready to go, more up for anything kind of thing, So yeah, I feel good.
Stumble out of bed and I stumble to the kitchen.
Exactly. First new morning stream, as you should. Thank you, Dr. Nick. We appreciate that very, very much.
Hey, Dr. Nick.
Hey, Dr. Nick. Abiding 71. Thanks for the 99 cents. We appreciate that. Here's a name we haven't seen in a while. She explains why. Sashimi Seductions, watching from London. First live stream since the Aaron Mate interview. Yeah, we have not seen you in a while, but that's why, because we go on at midnight usually. See, this is why we added the show, because according to our YouTube numbers, about 25% now of our viewers are overseas. So it gives you guys a chance to say hello and tune in live. And thank you very much for being here. Great to see you again. Let me just get our second of 3 patron scrolls going here. When you sign up at patreon.com/DueDissidents, you get your name up in lights on the screen here. You also get access to our 2 monthly Patreon and Substack exclusive live streams, which we do as private streams over on Rumble, or as we're going to start calling them, the bonus hole shows. 2 of those, name up in lights, call in access to all of our regularly scheduled
Russ
live
and
streams.
Keaton's bonus hole.
Right, Russ and Keaton's bonus hole. Bram Britsky for the Bookshelf Fund. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much. See, we're seeing some names that we have not really seen before or in a while. That's the point of doing the morning shows, right? Get to say hello to some people who maybe can't stay up and catch us when we go late into the evening. Dave Dillarai, we know this guy. He has a San Francisco baked coffee going. Beautiful.
You know what? I mean, I was going to tell Keaton, I think we're done. I think that's the winner. I'm thinking about also, to be fair, the best cheap coffee that I had. It should be like 2 winners, I would say.
Yeah, we could do that.
We
have it in the budget. So we can
best like
$5
$5 and under coffee, and the best. Yeah, because I have I wrote down everyone's coffee pick, because it seems like we're out of coffees that are accessible to me. Even though it's New York, I mean, there's only so much that they actually stock, even at Whole Foods.
Right.
So I think I've hit the limit on what people suggested that I can actually buy on a shelf. I'm not doing anything I have to ship every time.
Right. Of course. That's not sensible. Willie Bragg. Thank you, Willie Bragg. We appreciate that. Willie Bragg works nights, as I understand. So hopefully this is working out a little better for you, Willie. Thank you. Good to see you. Courtney. She'll meet us anytime, anywhere. Courtney's one of our diehards. Thank you so much, Courtney, supporting this new morning live stream. Thank you so much. Yes, this is why we're able to do this, folks. We are able to do this because of the super chats, the Patreon subscriptions, the YouTube memberships. Were it not for those, Russell would be schlepping some tourists around the Statue of Liberty now, and I'd be dragging someone there, Dunkin' Donuts or groceries or whatever. We'd much rather be here with you all, and so all of your support is what makes that possible. Tusker, thank you for the $5. Remember when Bush Sr. held up a baggie of crack on TV from bust across the street from the White House? Hunter must just be doing another bit. Yeah, he was in the White House recently. I mean, it's just amazing how the media is acting like, yeah, I mean, we don't really know where this could have possibly come from. I mean, the thing is, I don't really care, and I don't think most people really care, but, like, this is a sign of the times having changed. Part of this is Trump. Part of this is just, I think, a natural evolution of society in a more positive direction. Like in the 90s, forget it. Cocaine in the White House. In the 80s, could you imagine? I mean, that'd be all anyone is talking about. Who brought the cocaine? You disgraced the White House by bringing cocaine. People don't really mind that anymore.
Well, at this point, the country is so decadent. It would be like, trying to figure out which senator vomited up a chicken bone at the vomitorium.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, what are we even talking about here? I kind of wanted to take a look at this clip because one of the right wingers, I think it was Watson, actually showed a clip where Joe Biden, I think it was the 4th of July celebrations, and Hunter Biden are out on the balcony and music is playing and Joe Biden is clearly tense and she's trying to dance, but she's clearly tense. And Hunter walks behind them and he's like this, rubbing his nose. Like he did it in slow motion so you can see what Hunter's doing back there. Yeah.
Maybe we'll analyze that on Sunday. Maybe we'll take a look at the tape.
I'll go back and find where that was.
All right. K.N. Kareen. See, I haven't seen you here before. This is the name of the game. They didn't make a profit with the Little Mermaid. You need 3 times profit, which is 625 plus. Well, yeah, you got to give a cut to the theaters.
They hit around 500-ish, right?
Yeah. It got off to an impressive start domestically, but then it kind of fizzled out.
Like, this is not the Little Mermaid we were looking for.
Right. All righty, we will do one more and then we will take the rest after we do another segment here. Ryan Wood, thank you for the $10, my friend. Just caught up on the live shows. Pasta was a raving lunatic and I couldn't agree with him more. Yeah, I gotta send him that feedback. He would like that. You're a raving lunatic, but I couldn't agree with you more. Please have him back. We don't need any more of that Jordan guy though. No, I would love to have Pasta back. Pasta's great. He's fantastic. And support them because they just got denied monetization again by YouTube, which is not fair. And so
who did?
Combo Couch.
Oh, right.
They reapplied and they got rejected again. So it's really not right. So go and support them. They have a Patreon, patreon.com/the Convo Couch. And then Pasta has a Give Send Go for his campaign coverage, which I screwed up. I accidentally deleted the banner. I'll put it up next time. But yeah,
I'm trying to look this up, but yes, based on everything I'm able to find, yes, Little Mermaid probably lost money.
All right, we'll do one more here since this is related. Disney peaked with The Black Hole in 1979. All downhill from there. Thank you, Dan. We appreciate that. All righty, folks. So why don't
what about the first Avengers movie?
Well, but yeah, I mean that's technically. Yeah. I mean now Disney and Marvel are one, right?
He's kidding.
No, but what I'm saying is, we don't want to think of that too much. All righty, beautiful, folks. We mentioned a few weeks ago how The Nation magazine put out an article discouraging Cornel West from running for president. That was by one of the real sort of top 10 most repulsive shit libs around, Joan Walsh. Now, The Nation has always branded itself as a progressive magazine, not a socialist magazine. They've always been fairly Democrat aligned. So that was not terribly surprising that they put that article out, especially from Joan Walsh. However, they put out another piece just a few weeks later, changing their tune slightly. This is by Bhaskar Sunkara of Jacobin Magazine, who's now president of The Nation magazine, and D.D. Gutenplan, who I've never heard of. D.D. Gutenplan. D. I must say, this guy is a disgrace to the D.D. community. As chair and co-chair.
Where's the guy with a red suit and a billy club when you need one?
Exactly, yeah. You're a disgrace to the organization, my friend. They put this out here. We believe West could make a terrific, even a historic president, which makes it all the more unfortunate that he seems not just resigned, but determined to remain on the margins. Headline of this being, Cornel West should run as a Democrat. Now, it's funny. They say, we believe he could make a terrific, even historic president. When 3 weeks ago, he ran this headline. Cornel West has no business running for president. As I mentioned when we covered this a few weeks ago, They ended up changing this headline.
Walsh, yeah.
Yeah, well, they ended up changing this headline to Cornel West should not be running for president because has no business running for president made them sound too much like the arrogant PMC condescending pricks that they are. And so they changed it. But this was the initial headline. But now Jacobin Boy is publishing a piece saying, no, he'd be a great president. We didn't mean he has no business running for president. He'd be terrific. Of course, we love Cornel West, but he shouldn't be running as a Green. He should be running as a Democrat. And we're going to read a little bit of this piece here. The reason for West... Sorry, go ahead.
Whenever I read these things, I hear a fop in my head. The reason for West's choice is clear.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, I would do that accent, but then this would take too long. Yeah. The reason for West's choice is clear. In our hardly democratic two-party system, acting as a spoiler in a close race is the closest a third-party candidate can come to relevancy. And if Donald Trump remains in serious contention next year, that is a risk no progressive can dismiss. Okay, so right there, buried about halfway through the article, is really the meaning of the article, which is this is essentially an endorsement of Joe Biden.
Right.
That's what this is. Because what you're saying is Cornel West shouldn't run as a Green. He should run as a Democrat, even though he's almost certain not to win. He can raise issues and then be out of the way come November. So that come November, yeah, we did our thing where we raised the consciousness and we created momentum behind all these ideas. But we're out of the way. So we're not going to cause any real trouble when the deal actually goes down on November 5th. The fact that Biden's first term has matched every success with disappointment, no, it hasn't matched every success with disappointment. I think the disappointments outweigh the successes by about 7 or 8 to 1, doesn't change that calculus. Oh, no? No? Mm-hmm. So the fact that Biden's first term has matched every success with disappointment doesn't change that calculus. Okay, so the fact that Joe Biden is funding Nazis to agitate for World War III doesn't change the calculus that, he's still preferable to Trump at the end of the day? Like, if Biden's record doesn't change the calculus, then you're not paying attention. That you're not a serious political observer or thinker. Well, he expanded pandemic relief and health coverage. Okay, this is just ridiculous with the American Rescue Plan, but then left many of those measures lapse. So I'm not even going to do that part, the dignity of reading.
All right. So
we're going to skip to the next slide. Go ahead.
As somebody who went over the wall from the corporate media, as somebody who was so in that bubble, I actually read Newsweek without laughing back in the day. That's the language. It's the language of this is what reasonable people think. This is the smart take. There's a lot of coding in the whole way that that's structured. It sounds exactly like a Newsweek article, like a New York Times op-ed. Look at the way everything is structured in such a way that it's presenting presumptions as cold hard facts. These are the baseline facts. Well, yes. See, this is for the people who want to fancy themselves the smarter ones, who see the mechanisms of the system and how it works. But you're the smart, pragmatic people, right? You've got an insider's take on what happens in politics. He did expand that. And no, we will admit that all of his successes are matched by failures, but no progressive can ignore the threat of Donald Trump.
Right, exactly.
And you're supposed to go, yes. This is massaging your fucking brain into this very, and this just shows the hollowness of identity politics, because based on the names, this is a very diverse op-ed. They're the same white moderates that you've always had. This is the language of the white moderate. You don't have to be white to absorb that mindset.
Of course. I'm glad you translated that so I didn't have to read it. There is, however, an available arena where West could still provide useful pressure by laying out the left alternative to Bidenism. Now, by the way, this is co-written by Bhaskar Sunkara, who was the editor-in-chief of Jacobin Magazine. He was high up. He ran that magazine for a long time. That was supposed to be the militant, hostile to the Democratic Party, Bernie Bro magazine, right? That was the go-to outlet for those campaigns. And look at this. Look at what this guy's saying here. Look what this guy's saying here.
But wasn't it Jacobin that published that article that the fucking shit libs loved after Trump got elected, arguing that we might have too much democracy? Wasn't it Jacobin that printed that? And it was going back to, how Aristotle and Plato were skeptical of the mob having too much power, and this is how democracies fail. I could swear that was Jacobin. I'm sure some of our geeky audience will
know in the
that.
chat. Yeah, if you know in the chat, let us know. I'm not sure. I'm not
pretty
sure
Jacobin published that.
Well, he says on the debate stage. Okay, so let me just start this. There is an available arena where West could still provide useful pressure by laying out the left alternative to Bidenism, the Democratic primaries. On the debate stage, at campaign rallies, and in national media coverage, West, with his prophetic voice and moral clarity, like Sanders in 2016 and 2020, could accomplish a great deal. Yeah, like losing. Like they act as if the Bernie campaign was this huge success. He lost, and the main pillars of his platform are arguably in worse shape now.
There's no free college, no universal health care, no $15 minimum wage, nothing.
And
None
they're
of what he
arguably worse
advocated.
along. They're arguably in worse shape now than they were then. Before those Bernie campaigns, Democrats were pretending to support Medicare for all. Now they come out and say, no, Medicare for all means we're taking people's insurance away from them. We can't do that. Right. So now most of the party has come out and said, no, we can't do this. This is impossible. This is unfeasible. We're not for it. Whereas before they acted like they were. So to act as if the Bernie Sanders campaigns were anything to model a future run after, I think is nonsense, especially structurally speaking. They happened within the Democratic Party where he had no chance from the outset except to what? Provide moral clarity, right? Yeah. And lay out the left alternative. We don't have to lay out the left alternative. The left alternative has been laid out for 7 years now. At a certain point, you have to either win or disrupt to the point where even if you don't win, you affect the outcome. A doomed Democratic primary campaign does not affect the outcome of the race. It's time to start influencing things.
That was National Review, apparently.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case,
the libs loved that article. Yeah. I could have sworn it was a left rag.
All right. Instead of taking his bat and ball and retreating to the margins, we believe West should seek out the truly national stage that running as a Democrat would bring. Yeah, just like Marianne Williamson has the national stage now. When's the last time anybody heard from her or her campaign? They bring her on Fox News every couple of weeks as a gag, as a joke. Other than that, nothing. What national stage would that bring? Instead of letting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. leverage his family name and his following as an anti-vax crusader into an ersatz challenge from the left, West should mount a real one, offering the radical solutions he's always championed, including on war and peace, which we believe this country desperately needs. Well, he is doing that now. He's doing that as a Green, which means he's going to get to do it all the way through November and be on the ballot in November, where we really see how those ideas match up against Democrats and Republicans. Whereas you run in a Democratic primary, you're out of the game March of next year. Cornel's now going to be in the game. Cornel now has double the amount of time to make his case. That's the other thing that people don't understand. All of these sort of electoral processes happen with a ticking time clock, right? And so, you're talking about building this campaign and creating this movement and raising this money and getting the message out there. If you're running as a Democrat, you have from now, July 7th, to whenever Super Tuesday is, March 5th or whatever. It's early in the process, but it's not terribly early in the process. At this point, you got 8 months to make your case if you're running as a D. If you're running as a Green, you have a year and a half. You have double that amount of time to get those ideas out there. No, it's very clear. What these fucking cowards don't have the balls to say is that they want Biden to win, and they're afraid he's going to blow it for Biden. And so he should run as a Democrat so that we can get his campaign over with and out of the way. That's what they want. They want Cornel West over with and out of the way by March of next year. And they're upset that he's going to cause problems for the Democratic Party because this is the readership that the Nation magazine has really cultivated. With Jacobin, it's a little bit different, right? They kind of built themselves as an alternative to the Democratic Party kind of, right? The dirty break was their big, thing that they always used to champion. The Nation is more a Democrat rag. It's the Warren reader. It's that sort of, Warren, sort of like progressive, sort of intellectual,
Exactly.
Democrats. That's who reads this. And they don't want Cornel West on the ballot. And the Nation doesn't want Cornel West on the ballot in November because he threatens to drive a wedge through their readership, because some of their readers are going to want to vote for Cornel West, and they're going to have to tell them no, because most of their readers are, oh, no, we cannot risk a second Trump term, right? So it creates a problem for them. Whereas if he runs as a Democrat, yeah, he gets the ideas out there. The Nation gets to take credit for championing his ideas and supporting his candidacy, even though it has no chance to win. And then once he loses, he's out of the way. Now we can all bring people into the fold and tell them to vote for Biden. That's what they want. That's what's good for their outlet. And it's just so cowardly that they won't just come out and say that. They have to give you this thing. Well, it's important to put these ideas on the table, and it's a shame that he's compromising himself by not running as a Democrat. No, he's putting you guys in an uncomfortable position by not running as a Democrat, which is why we love him for not running as a Democrat, because we need to put people in an uncomfortable position this cycle. We have to disrupt. It's not any longer enough to say, well, we tabled some good ideas and built some momentum, but that's the Jacobin model. That's the New Republic model. That's the Nation model, right? Keep pushing with good ideas, and eventually maybe we'll win, even though probably not. Thank you. See, my wife just brought me a coffee. Thank you.
That's very nice. Yeah. Well. The first one, it's funny. The first Jacobin article was we're going to scold you, and who better to do that than Joan Walsh, who was not even a skillful enough hack to keep her job at MSNBC. Right. And this one is the patting you on the head approach. Yes, no, we all care about wages, of course. Right. But you must express that care in a primary, in a major party. It's that. It's so condescending, and it's so manipulative. It's no, we're with you. We're with you on all this stuff. But to be a serious person, you have to run in a rigged primary that you could never possibly win, because, Joe Biden's going to listen to that stuff.
Right. Exactly.
He's actually going to give a flying fuck what Cornel West says in a Democratic primary where he can't even get on a debate stage. That's really going to move the needle of this fucking 837-year-old man. Is really going to change his thinking because of that.
Well, that's the other point. I mean, that's a great point. And it's not just speculation. Like, if you really wanted to make the case that pressure campaigns within the Democratic Party, that primary campaigns are worth it, the Democrats would have had to have passed Build Back Better, or at least did what Bernie at least said he wanted to do after Build Back Better failed, which is take pieces of it and try to pass them as standalone bills. Where was that standalone paid family leave bill? Why did that never come to Joe Biden's desk? Why was that never brought up? Because even Manchin was on the record saying he's for paid family leave. So even after Build Back Better failed, which right there it shouldn't have failed, because Democrats promised to hold the line. I'm sorry, the CPC promised to hold the line. Jayapal said, we're not going to cave and push both infrastructure bills through. Then they did. Even after that, though, they could have at least said, okay.
It was a leap of faith, Keaton.
Right, it was a leap of faith. Rokana, we're going to take a leap of faith. We promised to stick up for you. Well, turns out we can't, but we'll take a leap of faith that Joe Biden will get the deal done anyway. But after Build Back Better imploded, there were still items that Joe Manchin even was on the record supporting. So why didn't we get at least a paid family leave standalone bill? You'd have had to have passed something like that in order to make this argument to us that it's worth raising ideas, right? Or championing certain causes within the Democratic Party. You couldn't even do that. You couldn't even get a standalone paid leave bill brought up, voted on. And so the idea that there's going to be any tangible result to your having run this symbolic issue campaign in the Democratic primary is absolute nonsense. And Jacobin Magazine, I'm sorry, Bhaskar Sunkara has to know that's fucking nonsense. That's what's so infuriating about this. The co-author of this ran the magazine that was the go-to outlet for both Sanders campaigns. We've made a lot of these arguments before. We've hashed this out before. We've seen the results of this before. And now you're going back to this again in the spring and summer of 2020, post Super Tuesday. We had an audio show at the time. We weren't on YouTube. We weren't in touch with all you guys yet. But we kept saying, like, how could people want to do this again? Like, how could you be up for this again? How could you be up for running a primary, having the primary campaign sabotaged, and then having this debate with people? Do you want to vote for Biden? Do you want to vote Green? Well, it depends. Are you in a safe state? Are you in a swing? Who could want to do this again? Well, the answer is people who make a living doing it want to do it again. Jacobin wants to do it again. The Nation wants to do it again. Kyle, Crystal, we're doing 3 shows a week now. We understand we're under pressure to create content now. And so this gives you content. It's terrible for the country. It's terrible for the overall movement. But this is how they do it.
It's like Les Moonves said. It's bad for the country. It's good for CBS.
Exactly right. Bad for the country. Good for Kyle. Good for Jacobin. Good for Boskar. Good for the Nation. But it's just so sleazy. We'll read the end. Such a campaign would be good for the country. Well, as we just said.
All right,
no,
come on. Let me just do it full fop.
Such a campaign would be good for the country. And for the Democratic Party, which in the absence of such a contest risks ceding the national spotlight to the Republicans. Running as a Democrat would transform West candidacy from a sterile exercise into a vehicle for redeeming our politics from the corporate complacency and soul-crushing cynicism about democratic politics that serves only those already in power. In short, it would be the act of a serious man.
Serious man. I feel like now that you read it in that voice, we don't have to comment because that voice provides the commentary, provides the angle, right? Like you can tell what we think of it from the accent.
That's exactly what I hear in my head whenever I read things like this, because it so much has that tone of the pompous aristocracy telling the peasants what is sensible and what is right. That underlies the entire tone in ways that is so ingrained in these people's thinking. It doesn't even occur to them that it comes off that way.
Right. No, indeed. All right, let's take some super chats, and then we'll get on to our next segment here. This is a Rumble rant. Thank you, Stone.
And also, one last point I just want to make on that. Look, during the pandemic, when for a second they took the boot off people's necks with things, some people's necks, not everybody, but with the child tax credit, things like that. What happened, man? People started to demand more. They started to get a little radicalized, right? So we see them just print all this money to send to Ukraine, and we say, well, they could use this for paid family leave.
Right.
They can so easily do that. They can pay for college. They want us. Look what's happening in France. People always say, why doesn't that happen here? Because people are sick and desperate and tired and overworked. And if you start to take the boot off their neck, they might start to demand things. They might start to organize. They might start to question the system as they did at that time. So when you ask yourself, God, it's so easy to send this money to Ukraine. Why can't they just do that for us? That's part of why. Because if they did that for us, it would threaten the entire system.
Exactly. No, that's an excellent point. Is there a backstory? This is a Rumble rant, by the way, from Stone122112. Thank you. To your love-hate relationship with the Beavis and Butthead Kansas City boys.
Well, Zach, was probably my illegitimate child from when I was living in Chicago back in the day. So his mother's been in contact and gone back and forth. But I mean, I haven't seen that kid since he was a little nipper. He probably doesn't remember me now. He used to throw a ball around. He was too small though. Kept hitting him in the head with it. I was right there. We got off to a bad start.
Yeah, Stone, you're over on Rumble, so you're probably a little bit newer to the show, but it was almost a year ago now, actually. I think it was like late August of last year was when they did their Aaron Mate interview, and we did a little commentary on that, and that video is what really gave us an initial kick to the channel because people liked it a lot. they thought it was a funny take. And so that's kind of where that started. That's kind of how we kind of got a reputation for beating up on the Vanguard boys a little bit. I mean, we have to thank them very much. That interview gave us the show, basically. I mean, that's what gave us we got like 1,000 subs off of that video, and then used that to sort of build from there. So yeah, that's where that comes from.
That's what they call karma.
Indeed, yes. This is from Ellen Jimerson over on Rumble, a Rumble rant. Thank you, Ellen. I'd love to hear Russell talk about the state of documentary films, documentarians today, like the Obama American Factory thingy and its reception among doc makers. Yeah, Obama came up with this documentary series on Netflix called Working, What We Do Every Day, where he interviews like working people. And I know the Chapo guys did a review of that on their show. I thought about it, but then we'd have to commit to watching that whole thing, which is really not something I'm particularly interested in. The Pete Buttigieg thing was bad enough, but that was one feature film. It was a 2-hour doc. So we reviewed that for our patrons. But the Obama thing, yeah.
This is what's good about having pulled all this down. This guy, Studs Terkel, Kit, if you watch this later, one of your boys, Chicago, he did a bunch of interviews like that, and his most famous this was
inspired by that. Yeah,
he did a book called Working. That's great.
Yeah, well, this documentary was inspired by that. That's why
it was referring to the Studs Terkel thing.
Yeah, it's a reference. I mean, I don't think it's not. I don't think they credited it as the source material because it's a documentary. But yeah, it was definitely consciously aware that existed, and it was kind of a modern interpretation, if you will.
Okay, so my answer is we're kind of in a golden age of documentaries. That shit's not, I mean, that's for the shit libs. I mean, those are not real documentaries. But because the price, the bar to entry in terms of technology and the cost has been reduced so much, there's a lot of great documentary stuff out there. I mean, Jesus, there are so many channels and streaming services now that just do documentaries. For that matter, you can get tons of actually very good stuff on YouTube. I would say the greatest problem is there's so much good content. There's not enough time in the day to look at all of it. The Obama stuff, I mean, I wouldn't even consider that something to consider, if you know what I mean. Like, I wouldn't even think about it. Whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, like back, even 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, even before, the real advent of like mainstream streaming, like when Netflix basically switched from having the DVD shipping model to the, VOD model, like that really made documentaries accessible to people. Not just Netflix, but Prime has documentaries, Hulu, all these sites make it so easy for people to get documentaries out there. Where it used to be impossible to see 9 out of 10 documentary films, 99 out of 100. I mean, getting a documentary in the theater was brutal. Like Michael Moore could do it, but that was basically it. I mean, nobody, even like Grizzly Man, the famous one in 2006, that played New York and LA and Chicago a little bit. Like it was very, very difficult to get into see one of those because you had to go through the theater system, and documentaries just don't gross very much. But now because of streaming, now you can actually make them and get them out in front of people.
Yeah, this is the best time for documentaries ever.
Right.
Really, the biggest problem is that there's so much. You've got. I'm a subscriber to. This isn't exactly documentaries. It's more series of college lectures. I'm subscribed to Wondrium, formerly the Great Courses.
Yeah, I have that. It's great.
But you have Curiosity Stream. You have. I mean, they're just real. A lot of them, and they're really good. They're really good. So. The Obama stuff, I mean, I think in your question, you're kind of implying, documentaries being taken in a neo-lib direction. That's always been there. That'll always be there. I don't think people are really watching that shit. In fact, I would wager there are a lot of people who specialize in this on YouTube whose channels have had many, many, many more views than that Obama documentary series. I don't know anybody who watched that series.
Yeah, it didn't really make much of an impact, I don't think. The Illustrative Carp & Co. $9.99. See, I haven't seen you here before either. Thank you. Morning, gentlemen. I'd like to, on a bit of a tangent, suggest becoming familiar with MMT, modern monetary theory, and understanding our federal taxes do not fund or pay for anything. I would be interested in reading her book. What's her name? What's the Bernie advisor? She wrote the book on modern monetary theory. Her name escapes me.
We've talked about it a little bit.
I haven't. You've mentioned it. I really have not. I really have not looked into it.
I am skeptical of MMT because MMT only works. It's kind of like a Bitcoin vision of the economy. It only works as long as people value your currency. As long as other countries are going to buy your bonds, are going to invest in your treasuries. As soon as you start to have an outflow of foreign investment, I think MMT collapses. I think when you look at the history of countries that have taken the view that they can just print their way out of financial problems, that's never ended well. That tends to end in hyperinflation. So while I'm not an economist, I'm not an expert, I could be completely wrong. Insofar as I've researched this, I'm very skeptical of it. And I have every reason not to be, because every progressive would love to say the money supply is an illusion. So you can just print money for the healthcare and you can just print money. I would like to believe that, but I don't.
Yeah, but you're a closeted right winger, so I don't know.
Well, that's probably what it is.
Yeah. Kelton, thank you, Saul. See, our audience is so sharp. Stephanie Kelton, The Deficit Myth. Stephanie Kelton, a lot of people were right on that. Perfect, beautiful. Thank you. I will put that book on my list because we read the RFK book, which was half good, half a waste of time. So maybe that'll be next.
I'm writing that down right now.
The Deficit Myth by Stephanie Kelton. We could probably have her on, too, to talk about it. I'm sure she'd give us an interview. Eric Rousseau, thank you for the $5. Was this you, Russell? The driver of a double-decker tour bus ran a red light before the crash. Police and MTA told News 4. Was there a double-decker bus that crashed?
I think I vaguely heard something about that. Okay, so listen. I started out on the double deckers and I got off them as quickly as possible because that is, if you're an evil tour guide, you do double deckers in hell for eternity. That is the worst fucking tour guiding job on planet Earth. But it's good for your training. You learn things from doing it, so it's a good place to start. But you can't start there anymore. They had a union. They actually had a union in the double deckers. You had to join the union. And as far as I could tell, the union really didn't do shit for you. And it was a classic example of why some people complain about paying union dues. Because I was like, for what we're getting paid, why do we have a fucking union? I mean, for this amount of pay, I mean, you could negotiate that on your own without paying union dues, right? But they wanted to get rid of the union. So when COVID hit, that was their chance. They got rid of all the guides. They just went over to audio and just having somebody on there to make sure nobody gets hit in the head with a lamppost.
Yeah,
they don't hire guides for that anymore.
I interviewed for the double decker. The lady threatened to call the cops on me. That's how that interview ended.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I told that story on the air before. The long and short of it is she told me to come in at 10. I came in at 10. She didn't arrive till 10:30 to start the interview, and I had another job. I had to be at Radio City Music Hall by 10:45, so I had no time to do the interview. And, exchange a few words, and then she, got pretty nasty. So, yeah, didn't get that one. This is a good time for your workaholic demographic, too. Nice to have something in the early morning. Thank you. Yeah, it's nice. It's fun. If you work from home or if you work where nobody bothers you or even if you work where you can put some Bluetooth headphones in and listen, yeah, we dig it. We dig it.
I mean, the audience is really strong, especially
it's very
for
strong.
The first one.
Yeah, I had a feeling it would be. Straight cis bookshelf solidarity. Of course, this clear white for $19.99. Thank you for the donation. That's very kind of you, sir. We appreciate that.
Look, I don't care how the bookshelf identifies, but in the end, it's 3/4-inch ply.
Right, exactly. Yeah. K and Korean LOL, I've been here. Check your archives. So you've super chatted us in the past? Because I don't remember reading your name. Did you change names? I'll check the archives. I apologize if I missed you. But thank you for the donation. And we will read Leprechaun Alley. Thank you for the generous $19.99. That's fantastic of you. Nothing to say. Super stickers are too cheesy. Sending fan love. Well, sending love back to you, my friend. Thank you very much. Martin R., thank you for the $19.99 donation. All right, folks. So, I don't know if you've noticed, internet junkies that you are, social media addicts that you are, but there is a new social media app on the block. It's called Threads by Meta, launched by Mark Zuckerberg. This is a text-based app which mimics Twitter in its design, layout, and functionality. I'll just bring a sample of what I have here. As you can see, looks very, very similar to both Twitter and Substack Notes. They even have the blue checks, which I thought was a bit gratuitous. I mean, the blue check is the Twitter thing. I mean, I don't know if that's trademarked, but it may as well be, right? There's a cultural trademark on blue
wow,
checks,
they even did the blue check?
Yeah, they even did the blue check.
Oh, wow. It literally looks exactly like that.
Oh, it looks exactly like it. You can like, you can repost, you can quote, you can reply. There is a 500-character limit on text posts.
Yeah, even the buttons are the same.
Yeah, they're pretty much the same. Substack Notes is pretty much the exact same thing, too. There's a 500-character limit on text posts and a 5-minute cap on video posts. So both of those are about double what Twitter gives you. They had a successful launch, 30 million signups in its first day on the market. It is currently only available to Instagram users, so it's like an extension of the Instagram app, whereas Instagram is basically a photo extension of the Facebook app now. This is a sort of text extension of Instagram. You can post photos, videos. I mean, this is basically the Twitter app repurposed on Facebook. And, you know, this is a move that comes at a time where there's a lot of noise about people leaving Twitter because of Elon and, you know, going to, first it was Mastodon. That just wasn't built up to the point where, you know, it could sustain an influx of people. Now there's Blue Sky, which is the Jack Dorsey app that people were fleeing to. The idea is that now that another real tech giant like Facebook, another behemoth in the space, has their own, this might be able to give Twitter a serious run for its money just because of its presence in the market already. I still have my doubts, especially when it comes to political discourse, because like famous people can bring their following anywhere, right? So you got like Paris Hilton has a handle here, right? They're going to have hundreds of thousands of people follow them wherever they go. If you just engage in Twitter discourse, it's probably taken you a while to build up the following that you have if you have a large following. So you just can't move over all at once to this other thing, even if it is powered by Meta, Facebook, right? But whether it's a legit threat or not, Twitter was not happy. So Alex Spiro, Elon Musk's lawyer, wrote Meta the following letter after its launch. We won't read the whole thing, but I'll just read some of it. Over the past year, Meta has hired dozens of Twitter employees. Twitter knows that these employees previously worked at Twitter, that these employees had and continue to have access to Twitter's trade secrets and other highly confidential information, that these employees owe ongoing obligations to Twitter, and that many of these employees improperly retained Twitter documents and electronic devices. So they are basically claiming that Twitter's trade secrets were used to develop this app. So they're basically threatening legal action. Russell, what do you think?
I think that it's going to wind up being kind of like you have all these social media apps that you don't necessarily use. Like, yeah, I don't think there's going to be a mass migration to Threads. I think people will add it. But then what are you going to do? Like, if you already have your following on Twitter, you're also going to deal with this. Like, there's only so many hours in the day. So I think it's yet another example of the libs getting very excited about, oh, we're going to get Elon now. Oh, he's in trouble now. When has that ever worked out for them? When has that ever panned out? I understand. I agree with you. Sure, it's powered by Facebook. And I think for that reason, Blue Sky, Mastodon, these other efforts fall by the wayside because now with this in the space, yes, this will become the principal rival to Twitter. Sure. Can it displace Twitter? No, Twitter has too, as you say, it has too much of a head start. I mean, even me, I only started building a presence on Twitter a few months ago. I'm not going over there now to try to build a presence. It's a catch-22. Like, no one's going to go over there until the people are there, and the people won't go there because the people aren't there.
Right. Exactly. Right. I mean, the same thing. Like, whenever these new platforms come up, like, we've made a conscious choice here to not start swapping out the YouTube audience for the Rumble audience. Obviously, we love being on YouTube. But we need people to sign up for Rumble as a sort of fallback in case there's a big tech crackdown on outlets like ours. But we don't want to. Like, I actually like big tech. I just wish big tech worked better. I wish it were regulated better as a public utility. So that we can just have a free speech place. Like, it's actually really great and really convenient to have everybody in more or less one place because it saves us a tremendous amount of time to have to post shit to all these different platforms. I mean, we can sync our videos from YouTube to Rumble, YouTube to Odyssey and stuff like that. But like, I would love to be able to post every YouTube video up to Twitter. I would love to be able to post every YouTube clip up to Substack. We just don't have the time to do all of it. Same thing applies here.
Like, you basically have to hire a social media director to handle all of this shit. Like, you're going to be, for our marketing, it would be good if we did more on TikTok, if we did more on Instagram, but it's enough just to get the show up.
Right. Then you have to share it to 5 different outlets manually, and then you have to keep track of who's responding on what thing. Like, if I tweet something out, I should tweet something out on Twitter, then I should copy and paste that into Substack notes, then I should copy and paste that into Threads, then I should put it on Facebook. But who can do that? You know what I mean? Like, it's just insane. And so that's the real problem. And look, I think Threads will be successful because of the just massive built-in audience of Facebook and Instagram.
Right.
And eventually they're going to make it available to all the Facebook users, not just the Instagram users. But it's going to be more for like influencers, like already established influencers. Like the thing
like
that
Instagram
makes Twitter,
is now.
Right, like Instagram is now, basically. Right. What makes Twitter so unique is that everyone is just reachable, and it really allows everybody to build this following using nothing but the app and people to interact with people, like famous people. You can tweet at the president, and theoretically the president can read it and tweet you back. You know, like that communication just doesn't really exist anywhere else. And it looks like, based on the model of Threads, that's what they're going for. And they may very well get there someday, but it's just going to be too steep a transition curve for these, just every man and every woman on Twitter to like transition their established following over and basically start from scratch on this new app. And really, why? Like, the only people, I don't understand this apocalyptic thing. Well, Twitter's definitely failing soon. I mean, they said that a year ago. It's still there. It still works. Like, I don't understand this. Well, Twitter is horrible now. The thing he did with the read limits is horrible. And he said that that's temporary. We hope it is temporary. I have the blue check so I can post long videos so I don't run into it. Really bad timing, especially now. Aside from that, I mean, I don't really have problems with the app. It seems to work fine for me. So I don't understand this certainty that people have. Well, Twitter's definitely failing. That is lib mind rot there. It's like the idea, well, certainly. That sounds a lot to me like, well, Trump will never become president. Right.
Well, and it's similar because a lot of it is centered on Elon Musk. I could tell you, even before he became public enemy #1, anybody who's followed financial press over the last 10 years, Tesla was going to go bankrupt next month, every month for 10 years. Right? Oh, no, this is it. We're shorting Tesla. Billions of dollars have been lost by shorts by taking that position on Tesla. It seems like that pattern is playing out in a similar way with Twitter. Twitter's not going anywhere. It's kind of like, look, actually Meta, the parent company now of Facebook, and Threads. They had a really bad time after they introduced Meta, the metaverse, and nobody gave a fuck. And with a company that big that has that much cash to burn, they're never out of the game. And now they've like doubled over the last year in terms of their stock price, because now they're getting into this. They're getting into other things. When you have runway, you're never out of the game, right? Like Apple. Apple can have a bad year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. They have so
Disney's
much
not
cash.
out of the game. Right, exactly. Yeah.
Right. Disney's not going bankrupt. As much as I say they're about to hit a very bad period and they're kind of in it. Yeah, is Disney going bankrupt? And look, I was actually thinking about this before. That is partly a function of how much money we have funneled into these corporations, because at one time you would have gone bankrupt if you had the problems that some of these companies have had. Look at Atari. I think today Atari wouldn't have gone bankrupt. They would have had so much money from all the wealth that's been extracted out of society and funneled into corporations that they would have been able to ride out the bad moves that they made until they got to the other side of it. I think that's part of why you so rarely see these big companies go bankrupt anymore.
Right. Well said. All right, we're going to move on. We're going to take some more super chats and then do our final segment. This is from Ellen over on Rumble, talking about American Factory, which was nominated for an Oscar. Okay, well, I'll have to watch that one. Because you mentioned Obama, I assume that was what you were talking about. But I will definitely put that one on the list. So thank you for clarifying that, Ellen. So let's keep going. We'll read some more super chats here, and then we got one more segment to do. These shows, by the way, the morning shows are going to run 2 to 2.5 hours probably. They're not going to be as epic as the evening shows, but we thought it was a good idea to add these, and so far it's going very well. So thank you all very, very much for being here. Please hit that like button and hit that subscribe button to the channel, and thank you so much once again. Pat Donahue. See, look at Pat Donahue chatting a couple hours into the show. That's a change. That's because you're here watching live. He should run as a Dem so we could screw him like Bernie, malign him daily via our proxies in the media and ensure he can't win. Sure thing. Yeah, right, exactly. Good plan. Good plan. Thank you, sir. Mr. Fancy Pants, Bhaskar and Biden is the best president. Bhaskar said Biden is the best president since FDR. LOL.
Did he actually say that?
Probably early on. Wouldn't surprise me. I tweeted that out as a joke because Misty, our friend, Misty Winston, retweeted from a year ago where Biden was bragging that the cost of a barbecue was down 16 cents from the year prior. So I close tweeted best president since FDR.
Yeah, that was funny. That was a good one.
Sashimi, thank you for the £5. Early 2015, Bhaskar Jacobin also shat on Bernie's chances. Their Marxist structural determinism makes them think real change is impossible. Posers. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's it. I've had it with that outlet. It sucks because we interviewed like 5 of their writers and things like that. And, you know, they were very good to us at the beginning of this project. We were able to interview quite a few of them. And, you know, it's nothing personal, but I never interviewed him. But, you know, I mean, it's just absurd. It's just fucking absurd. And now to print that piece and just to say 16 months in advance, well, it's important not to be on the ballot in November against Joe Biden. Right? Like that. Right. Come on. That's just showing your hand. Over the line. Jacobin asked me to write on China and then censored it. Oh, really? So you submitted a piece to them. That's interesting. Interesting to know.
Huh.
I tried putting them in touch with Chris Smalls no, not Chris Smalls. That's wrong. They did interview Chris Smalls. I tried putting him in touch with Joey Holtz, who did the labor piece where he did the experiment where he applied to all these jobs and got just one interview. I tried putting him in touch with them because he was doing some interviews at the time. We interviewed him at the time. They didn't want to. They didn't want to because he's too grubby for them. He's too working class for them, right? He's
too real.
Right, too real. Right. So Terry, $30. I appreciate your commentary and knowledge about the issues. Thank you, Terry. Keep up the good work. You two are awesome. Well, you're awesome, and thank you for the awesome donation. Terry. We appreciate that very much. Thank you guys for the donations. Like I said, those are what make these streams possible, and so we really appreciate you being very generous this morning. Dan Richmond. Did Russell's apartment install new low-flow shower heads? Oh, what, because of his hair? I think his hair looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I think his hair looks all right.
You know, doing it this early in the morning, I haven't even had a shower. I just wet it down. So,
Yeah.
you know.
I just let the hair go. Now that I have short hair, I let it be where it is. See, there's a little imperfection in my hair there. Gives it character. Thank you, Dan. Franklin, spoiler arguments would have more purchase if Biden were actually the lesser of two evils, but objectively he probably isn't based on Ukraine alone. That's exactly
the thing.
That's exactly been my point. That is exactly my point, almost to the word. Like, you can't even really start talking spoiler unless it's clear who the lesser evil is. And in my opinion, the lesser evil is probably Trump, right? And so there goes the spoiler argument.
That's a big part of the problem with that article. Like, on the one hand, as much as they're communicating propaganda, on the other hand, they don't even realize what the conversation is about. They're playing the old game. They think that we're still starting with the baseline assumption that it would be worse if the Republicans won.
Right, exactly.
They're assuming that we're all on that page and that we're going to have the conversation within those boundaries. It hasn't even occurred to them yet that this is actually the post-duopoly left. This is actually, we've really dem exited. Not
a bluff.
Not done a performance of dem exiting. We've really dem exited. That thought hasn't crossed their minds yet.
Yep, exactly. We were not bluffing. That Build Back Better was really the last. I mean, a lot of people left well before that, but that Build Back Better sabotage was really, that was it. Yeah. That was the last straw. Once that happened, there were many people who said, okay, that's it. Never again, period. No joking around this time. Dave Dillery, Curiosity Stream, Get Factual Perspective, Odyssey, and many more doc channels on YouTube. All right, good to know. Those are all good resources. Thank you, Dave. The illustrative Carp and Company. No, that's wrong. It's about resources. You're talking about MMT? I will read that book. That'll be next on the list. Because we read the RFK book, and I would say I liked half of it and didn't like half of it. But it was worth reading for sure. And I'll read this book also.
Well, you know what I got now, and I think I will keep it for this reason. I was never interested in Audible because I like to read, but there are so many things I need to keep up with as part of podcasting. I don't have time to read all of these books. So now when I'm riding the bike, when I go to the gym, I'm listening to, I don't mind as much with nonfiction listening to it. I am not, people who are going to listen to great literature. I don't, that's like a war crime to me. But I mean, nonfiction, who cares?
Right. Sorry, let me just put one more up. This is Ellen from Rumble. To keep clarifying, American Factory proposed Obama helped the working class. Okay, the Obamas were producers. There we go. Okay, now we're on the same page. It was nominated for an Oscar. Doc filmmakers could not concede the conflict of interest. Lauded. Interesting.
See, that's why I never watched it, because I knew nothing on this subject made by the Obamas would not make me want to projectile vomit at my TV. That's why I never saw it. I knew it was going to be steeped in that Obama. I see the working people.
Yeah, right.
I knew it was going to have that. That's why I never watched it.
Come to think of it, Ellen, I'm still a bit unclear. Would you mind further clarifying for another $1? Right? Just kidding. Just joking. All right. Okay, let's go to our final segment, and then we do have some more super chats. Don't worry, we will get to all of them. So here, actually, let me knock out these two since we're on these. Which of you is the do, and who is the dissidents? Interesting. Well, I guess I would be the do since I'm on the left, and Russell's on the right-hand side of the screen.
We're non-binary.
Right, exactly. Tough to say. And Eric Rousseau, 27 taken to the hospital, dozens more evaluated in red light NYC bus crash. The horror. Was that just happening now?
Did it just happen?
Breaking now? That's horrible.
Because I thought there was something like that months ago.
It sounds like it's happening now. Yeah, that's terrible.
I will hold down the ship. I will take a quick look.
All right. I'll read a couple more of these. Mosaic says, I want Tusker. Give me Tusker now. Friday simping. You almost got Tusker this morning because Russell had a little bookkeeping mishap that he almost had to go and work for the first Friday stream. So, but yes, Tusker will be back, I'm sure. Auntie Anne. So that is happening now. The bus crash.
It is.
Where?
I'll screen share it real quick. We're not going to get in trouble for this. It's not Hunter Biden naked or anything.
Right.
All right. So 27 taken to hospital. Dozens more evaluated in red light NYC bus crash.
Is that Columbus Circle? No. That's not Columbus Circle.
Let's see. So this happened last night. This happened Thursday night. An MTA bus and a double-decker tour bus crashed near East 23rd Street and First. All right. So they were So they were going up through Medical Mile there.
Yeah. Well, that was convenient at least.
Yeah, that's the stand. Yeah, exactly. That's right by Bellevue.
Yeah, that's right near Bellevue. Bellevue's what, 25th?
Yeah, it's
Something
Bellevue. Like that's NYU's place. There's one. It's known as Medical Mile because Bellevue was the first modern hospital in New York. So all these medical centers, the coroner, like everything sprung up around it. The one that is most terrifying to me is they have a school of nursing, engineering, and dentistry. If you're offering all three of those subjects, you're not doing any of them well.
Exactly. Yeah. 3 in 1. Auntie Anne. Good morning, guys. Please show some love to the handful of listeners
Get a free engineering degree with your anesthesiologist certificate.
Exactly. Please show some love to the handful of listeners over on Rockfin. I think you'll get some pennies if you paid Rockfin subscribers follow and watch your channel over there. Yeah, we just have to set it up as I don't know, do we set it up as premium? I feel bad, I can't set up a premium Rockfin stream if we're free on the other platforms. It's just a little odd. But yes, thank you to our Rockfin viewers. I just can't have 3 screens open of 3 chats at once. It would just be way too hard to handle. But we are thinking about trying to get, if anybody who does want to volunteer to sort of hang out in the studio and keep track of some chats for us so they can put some super chats up from other platforms, that would be great. Because now I'm juggling 2 at once, and that's already kind of tough enough. And not only tough enough, but it does tax the internet when you run 3 streams at a time, and we can't be buffering. So I got to keep the Wi-Fi free and clear. But that is a good point, and thank you. We are conscious of that. Thank you, Auntie Anne. All right, perfect, beautiful. All right, we got a few more that we will get to at the conclusion of the show, but we have one more segment to do here. This is sort of a sequel in the ongoing saga of Anna Kasparian's Why I Left the Left episode. So we decided to sort of do a little bit of a mashup that Russell put together on some of the fallout from Anna's interview on the Sitch and Adam podcast, where she disavowed much of the TYT audience, basically. I wouldn't say she left the left. She didn't really say much that offended us or people in this audience, but certainly that TYT audience, which has been primed by Cenk and Anna to dismiss people out of hand the second they say something that they're not pre-programmed to already believe. That triggered a lot of the audience, and a lot of people within their ecosystem have turned on them and have canceled them. So part of this montage, you're going to see Mike Figueredo give his reaction. We are going to play some of that Olay clip on the Vanguard again. And then there's also a trans woman who worked for TYT. She has quit in response to this recent perceived shift. So we have some of her piece in here as well.
And Brianna's.
And Brianna Joy Gray, yes.
Brianna's paper metaphor for some of these issues.
So this is a few minutes. We'll put this on full screen here, and then we will be back to talk about it.
Protecting, I think that protecting, marginalized communities, protecting the transgender community is important. However, when you move out of or move far away from making sure that they are not denied housing, making sure that they're not denied healthcare, when you move into these more fringe areas of there was a story out of the UK this week, blows my mind. There was an LGBTQ group in the UK who suggested that instead of referring to vaginas as vaginas because it might be offensive to transgender men, one of the potential replacements or substitutes could be bonus hole.
Fuck.
Use language that acknowledges what many in the mainstream and on the right characterize as goofy, if not harmful, things like the phrase birthing people, or the most recent controversy is referring to trans men as having bonus holes instead of vaginas because of their dysmorphia. And
sorry.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
In the same way I've had to cut out cancerous family members, I'm cutting out TYT from my media diet. Because if the so-called home of progressives tries to make you feel like shit for standing up for yourself in the face of discrimination and possibly elimination, I promise you, you don't need them in your life. You don't. You deserve better. Trans people deserve better. You can find better allies than that. So I'll tell TYT the same thing that I've told family members who tried to make me feel bad for shoving my gayness down their throats or advocating for myself too much or too loudly. Go fuck yourself.
No. You insulted him a little bit. You got a little out of order yourself.
I pointed out something that Anna had said on the air, where I was like, hey, Anna said this bit about doctors giving hormone therapy to children because they were afraid of being called transphobic. And I was very clear. I was like, you know that's not happening, right? Like, you know that isn't happening. And Cenk's response was, you know, I don't know. See, I could see it happening, though. And I'm like, no, but you couldn't, because you know if that actually did happen, that would be medical malpractice, and it would be like a federal case.
Let me explain this to y'all. I don't care for all of this. Like, Anna, let me be fucking clear. Keep my name out your mouth. The only reason why anybody even mentioned you, because I don't even think you matter. I don't even give a fuck about your white-centered view in the world. And also because you keep I'm Armenian, but they keep saying I'm white passing. Whiteness is a construct. Maybe you should read a fucking book before you present like you the queen of the fucking leftist liberal movement.
But white guys, see, they drive a car like this.
It's true. It's true. We're so lame.
You're a man, you're a trans man, etc.
Well, no, that's like saying I have a yellow piece of paper and a white piece of paper, and I'm a paper and you're not because you're white paper. No, they're both paper, but this one's yellow and this one's white.
You serious?
That's paper.
This is also
That's
paper.
Yellow paper.
This is also paper. And unless you're saying, and you have every right to say this, unless you're saying that in no way, shape, or form does anybody's identity matter, and if you're a trans woman, you're really a man, and that's a stance that a lot of people have.
You're a trans woman.
Right, but they're both paper.
Yes, that is very much how I felt watching those clips, like Nicolas Cage at the end there. Like, listen, Brianna.
See, with Brianna, that's the one that's just the most cringy because she's smart enough to know how ridiculous she sounds, and she's clearly just grasping. I think that's why she went to the paper, right? Like, if you really wanted to demonstrate it, you probably wouldn't pre-plan going to paper. You know, like once you realize, okay, I'm struggling here. What do I have? You know, the actor in you, the improv. Okay, all right, I got paper. I got yellow, white. Like, it's clearly just kind of improvising on the spot. And you see a Harvard lawyer just reduced to such idiocy for no reason because she feels she has to. Well, I mean, Figueiredo is a true believer. I'll give him that. Benny, she's a true believer. Like, I actually give them credit for walking away. Like, listen, if you don't like what the company stands for anymore and you leave, good on you. Like, I don't necessarily agree with your rationale for it, but like, they're putting their money where their mouth is, right? I mean, so, you know, can't argue too much with that. Brianna's just like, okay, I have to maintain some sort of left woke bona fides, so I have to dig at Anna for this. But how do I do it? And she clearly just had nothing. And Robbie, it's funny because, you know, Robbie's Reason Magazine, Libertarian, they are pretty hands-off with all this stuff. Like you know, they're libertarians, right? They almost by definition don't give a shit about any of this. Right, and so he's just sitting there, well, I mean, but why can't you just say trans woman? Like, why do you need the cis thing? You know, like he's very detached from it emotionally. He has no stake in it. Right, it's not his game. So he's just like very calmly just being okay. And then she's flustered because she has to get this right. It's important in this space to get this right. Yes, otherwise you get shit, right? And so you saw her really sort of flailing there.
Well, Robbie, and that's why I drew attention to it with the Simon and Garfunkel sound drop. So he had an honest gut reaction. He had clearly not heard about this. So when she said bonus hole, he had a gut reaction. And then really go back and watch that. She gives him side eye, and he's like, sorry. Because he's afraid that maybe he could attract these psychos if he projects too much disgust at something that's obviously fucking absurd. It's very strange. You know, a lot of people say they watch Breaking Points now and they like Saga better. Certainly watching that sequence, Robbie is the person that's most relatable.
Of course, because what makes you exactly what makes you relatable in this conversation is not caring about it. Like, that's what makes you relatable. What makes you relatable to the average person when talking about something like this is just sitting there and just like being, wow. I mean, what does it say about your movement and the state of left politics that you're forced to do this whole bit that you're doing right now with paper, yellow paper, white paper, cis, trans, this like this is just not a serious project that you've engaged in. And when it comes to someone like Brianna Joy Gray, like, what a waste of talent and intelligence, right? And perspective, like, to see you just have to reduce yourself to this when clearly she doesn't want to. Like, I'm surprised that she didn't come at this more from this place that we are, which is like, I don't disagree with really anything Anna's saying. I just think she did this to herself. Like, we're both we're both defending Anna on the substance, but also understanding, like, hey, you created this problem for yourself by programming your show the way you have and training your audience to respond to these things in the way that you have. And we have a few examples of that we're going to show now. Do you want me to play these now? Did you have one thing you wanted to add in first?
It's interesting, and Nick made this point. I'm pretty sure it was Nick on Nick Cruz on Twitter. They didn't give a shit about their Russiagating. They didn't give a shit about any of their economic policies over the year. They said some shit about trans. Oh my God, these people. Like, look, some of them and some of their pushback on Anna have mentioned a little bit the crime issue or the homelessness issue and positions they took on that pissed people off. But 90% of what they've been screaming about is this issue.
It was when she said, call me a woman. That was really it.
That was really what set them off. Yeah. Not even the crime and the homelessness thing.
No.
Which tells you how socially engineered this is. Because does that make any sense in terms of proportionality? That this whole supposedly left segment is so obsessed with what is, look, by the numbers alone, it's a very fringe issue, right? I mean, we live in a world of sweatshops and cluster bombs that just broke right before we went on the air.
Yeah, we were supposed to break that. We forgot.
Yeah, the Joe Biden just approved cluster bombs to Ukraine, a weapon 120 countries have banned because they're so dangerous to the civilian population, even after the war, because undetonated fragments will get into the soil and be there for decades afterwards. All of this is happening in the world, and this is what you're fucking really obsessed with? Really? And also, even as they call Anna a grifter, they were all grifting off this. They couldn't do enough segments about this as soon as it broke. Everybody went full Vanguard as soon as this broke. Everybody became a gossip channel. We're doing, I mean, granted, but I mean, it is an interesting topic up to a point.
Well, no, I mean, I think this is really this is not the culmination, but this is a major step towards what we were saying was a long time coming.
I mean, it's vindication for a lot of what we've been saying for as long as we've had this channel. So of course we're going to cover it. It's interesting.
Well, not only is it vindication, it's good news. Like, because now, like, you saw a lot of the people in that video, right? And David Dole, one of them, he approached it from a slightly different angle, so we didn't include him in that montage. But what gave that camp of the left, this just very knee-jerk, very judgmental, very dismissive, reductive, shallow, sort of lib-adjacent faux left, what gave them a lot of credibility in that camp was TYT, was the fact that they were proteges of TYT. They were under the umbrella of TYT, both thematically and in some cases literally financially, economically, right? And now they don't have that anymore. Who is going to listen to any of these people anymore? People weren't even really listening to TYT anymore. I mean, Cenk Uygur doesn't get invited places anymore. They had him on CNN for a little while there, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
You know, it's gone. It's done. It's done. It's over. TYT is over now. Because without channels like Figueiredo and Dole and the Serfs and the Leftist Mafia and Ole, without them, you know, there to sort of undergird whatever TYT is doing, that's it. I mean, I think there's a real split there between them and their audience, and that section of the left is going to continue to dwindle. I hope a lot of their audience sees the lights, you know, and comes over to places like ours, Jimmy's, RBN, Hardlands, right, all that. Can't promise they will. That's what I would hope. But their faction was never serious, and now it's fracturing. Now
they're
it's
deeply
fracturing.
unserious, one might say.
Yes, one might say deeply unserious, and now they're fracturing. But so as we've talked about, you know, Anna is getting all this backlash now, not just from her fans, her listeners, but now also from her sort of peers in her sort of corner of the online left that she and Cenk sort of carved out. And this is what we mean when we talk about, okay, how did they get there? How did they get to a place where they step an inch out of line and they get canceled? Well, we have a few exhibits that we want to play just outlining this sort of atmosphere that they have nurtured over the years. This is a famous one, obviously. Here's Anna saying she is better. I'm better than you, right? The famous I'm better than you clip.
Attack me for being overly emotional or for passionately, you know, defending those who are defenseless, then go ahead. You can attack me all you want. But am I saying that I'm better than you? I guess I'm going a little further than you are. Yeah, I'm fucking better than you, okay? Much better than you. You are garbage, okay? If you get a rise out of attacking the powerless, you're garbage. And you can call me a social justice warrior. You can call me whatever the fuck you want. At this point, I don't give a shit.
There you go. So that was in response to a lot of, you know.
That was not easy to find.
No, not easy to find. That was in response to, you know, her charge. That was in summer of 2016. Right? Talking to a lot of the Trump supporters, a lot of the right-wingers who she branded as uncaring about other people. And she says, well, you have these opinions because you don't give a shit about anyone but yourself. And that makes me better than you, right? That's a knee-jerk reaction based on a very shallow understanding of the other person's views, right? So that's Exhibit A. Exhibit B. This is Cenk Uygur. We've played this on the show in the past. This is Cenk Uygur responding to a Tucker Carlson segment where Tucker Carlson was nervous about trans people arming themselves. And Cenk pointed out fairly accurately that Second Amendment absolutism takes a back seat on the right to other culture war issues, like if it's trans people having guns or you know, urban quote unquote populations arming themselves.
The urban audience.
Right, the urban people. Right, exactly. So he's not wrong about that. But then he goes a step further and says, gun control advocate that he is, he wants to carve out an exception for trans people, saying they ought to arm themselves. Here's this.
Guns, I would ban assault weapons.
Sorry.
I don't like guns. I would ban assault weapons in a second. We can go on and on about the gun control that we need in this country. And I always tell people, don't get guns. It'll make you less safe. I'm gonna make an exception here for trans people. They are actually in danger. They have had hundreds of laws passed against them. They have right-wing media ginning up fear against them 24/7. They are targeted more than any other group in America. And if anyone should get guns, it should be trans Americans, okay? Because I'm worried for them. I'm worried that the right-wing lunatics are going to attack them.
Now, aside from the fact that that really contributes to this sort of apocalyptic and violent rhetoric that has been associated with a lot of the trans activist movements, i.e., you know, we are being genocided, they want us extinct, they want us not to exist, right? Aside from that, when you say a thing like that, it should come as no surprise that when Anna says, hey, maybe puberty blockers shouldn't be given to minors, it should come as no surprise that they're going to turn on you, because you're on camera right there saying that all of this discourse, all of this disagreement, any disagreement, right, with anything related to this issue constitutes an existential threat to trans people.
Violence.
Right, it's violence. So, I mean, that was not long ago. What was that, 4 or 5 months ago?
Yeah.
Estimating? Yeah, that was pretty recent.
Definitely within the last 6 months. I think less. I think about 4 months ago we did that segment.
Yeah, exactly. Now, here's the most recent example, and this was a clip that Mike Figueredo actually showed in his response to how this all went down. This is Cenk Uygur very, very recently. So what?
Hang on. We're a little under now, but we did hit.
Oh. Yeah, well, we would have hit that today. This is Cenk Uygur just a few days ago, right? Doing a segment in reaction to Trump voters, right? They sent a man on the street out to interview the Trump voters. Jordan has done that. David Pakman just did it. You know, all the lib channels have to go out and, oh, look how stupid the deplorables are, right? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So there's a Trump voter who talked about family values and talked about, wanting to be able to raise their kids without government intrusion, things like that. Here's his response to that. And by the way, this Mike Figueredo showed this, which is very odd, which we will get to in a second. But here's this final clip.
Has our values? Does he? What's your values? I mean, you don't mean family values. He's raw dogging porn stars, and he's says terrible things, does terrible things. You don't mean family values. So what values are you talking about? Oh, he believes in putting parents in charge of children. That means I don't like gay people. I'm sorry, that's what it means.
That means he wants to be able to make a decision or help.
A decision about what?
He doesn't want schools making decisions for
about
his kids.
About gay people.
It's
and racism, right? He doesn't want racism taught. Those are the two issues, Anna. Those are the two issues in the schools.
Those are not the two issues, okay? One of the issues that you're totally downplaying right now, not even mentioning, is that some school districts want to, let's say a student comes out and identifies as transgender, school districts want to support that student and, help him or her through that transition without ever having to notify the parents. I think there are issues there.
Okay,
and I do not begrudge parents for being concerned about that.
Anna, I agree with you. But you're finding a sliver of an issue. That guy's not talking. He doesn't even know that.
How do you know he doesn't know that? Right, now, Mike Figueredo pulled this clip to demonstrate that Anna has stepped out of line because she gave Cenk a little pushback mid-monologue. Once again, folks, this is a few days ago. This is how recent all of this just blew up, right? Because just a few days ago this was going on, right? So he pulls that as an example of how Anna steps out of line by giving him some pushback. Hey, maybe when he says, he wants to be able to raise his kids, maybe he doesn't mean that as an anti-gay attack. Maybe he means what she said he means, right? Now, without litigating the issue, look, that's complicated. I've met a lot of teachers who have had to play therapists for their kids because the home is not a safe place. Like if a child is risking getting thrown out of his house by his parents if he comes out to them as gay or trans, that's an issue that goes above what a teacher should have to deal with. Like there should be other authorities involved in that. That is a social services issue where some intervention is required if you're literally going to throw your teenager out on the street, right? So I'm not saying that's a slam dunk in either direction, but neither did Anna. Anna just said there's an issue there. There's something there that has to be worked out and fine-tuned because it's not black and white in either direction. Certainly not black and white to the point where you can just say that a parent would be concerned about the degree to which there are interventions in his child's life at school, his or her child's life at school, that they are not being made aware of. That's an issue. That's complicated. You can't just point to that person and say, well, you're anti-gay. That's what you mean by that.
Right, of course.
Right?
Of course. Well, that's
hold on.
What's so cold.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
The one point I would just make to wrap my take on it anyway, is that Cenk saying, well, you say you want to raise your kids, that means you're anti-gay, and you're talking about a sliver of an issue. He doesn't know about that. That is the exact reductive, knee-jerk reaction that you have cultivated within your audience that they are now spitting back in your face because you stepped out of line. Right. They are now assuming that when you say puberty blockers shouldn't be given to minors. They are assuming that you hate trans people. Why? Because you put it in their head that anybody who strays from the narrative is doing so out of malice or ill will. This was days ago. You were preaching that to them. You were telling them, interpret any deviance from the narrative as bad faith, as malice. And then you stepped out of line, and now they're giving you the business. It should be no surprise. It should come as zero surprise whatsoever. This was a few days ago. We just pulled the clip earlier from 7 years ago. It's been like this forever at TYT. That is the audience you have cultivated. You've made your bed. Now you got to lay in it. It's that simple.
Yeah. In regards to that specific issue, we don't even let the federal government decide what's going to be in textbooks. It's there are serious questions about empowering the state that way, partly because I think anybody who's looking at this issue objectively, there's an agenda being pushed here. And, there's a lot of debate about the pharmaceutical industry pushing it, the medical industry pushing it, the Davos people pushing it. But clearly there's an agenda being pushed. So you cannot trust the state in regards to any of this at this point. And it is definitely way, way outside of the bounds of what we have traditionally thought of as the right of the state to intervene in. Right? Is it really the right of the state to take that away from the parent? We've never really believed that, and you're going to get enormous pushback on anything like that. Dole's, complete ignorance, apparently, of Roe v. Wade as the main driving force in the last midterms, notwithstanding. Of course, that is politically damaging. You want the people who enter professional training with the lowest grades and SAT scores of any major. That's a fact. Going back 50 years, you can look it up. Education majors are the least qualified students of any major there is. You want those people making those decisions about your child. And don't get me wrong, there are some wonderful teachers. I had some of them. But it is completely legitimate to say this is not something that belongs to the state. And
look, I think it's legitimate to say that in certain cases. I think it's legitimate to have that as a political issue to be litigated more thoroughly, because I know teachers who really had to act as therapists for their students, the public school where I went for 12 years, it is a very poor city. There were a lot of single mothers with one abusive boyfriend after the other. That the kids would just tell these absolute horror stories to the teachers, and they would tell the teachers, hey, you can't tell this to my mother when she comes in for a conference, because if my stepdad finds out, I'm going to get the shit beat out of me. You put these teachers in this horrible spot where the right thing to do for the kid is to keep the parents out of the loop. Now, the example I just gave doesn't apply to any of the gay stuff or the LGBT stuff, but certainly I could see a situation where, whatever, if a boy has a boyfriend at school and they tell the teacher, don't bring any of this up, my parents are going to throw me out of the house. There are a lot of situations where it is in the interest of the kid to keep the parent out of the loop. What my argument is, if it's gotten to that point, then it is at the point where other intervention is required. That's what you have social workers for. That's what you have an infrastructure to deal with. It can't just be, do the teachers get involved or do they not, right?
What I'm arguing is that's in theory. When you have the entire system has become so corrupted that you cannot trust the state, when you have the people working for the state have been overwhelmed by a batshit crazy ideological training that they have gotten at the university and in their grad programs, you can't turn to those authorities anymore. You're right in theory, but not under these circumstances.
Well, I'm also right under the circumstances that you can't necessarily make the parents paramount either in a lot of these circumstances. You can't. That comes with disastrous outcomes in and of itself. It's tough. It's a complicated issue. It's really hard. Some of these teachers are put in impossible spots. Right? And I think the only real solution is to restore these institutions to the point where they can be trusted to handle problems like that. A kid should not have to fear being kicked out of the house for being trans or gay or anything. And if a teacher knows that and knows there's a risk of that, what are they supposed to do? They're supposed to rat on the kid to the parent? No, but at the same time, there has to be some other recourse. In any case,
but
it
when
is
you've
not.
when you got an atmosphere where, you know, this girl likes to play baseball, so you got her batshit teacher tells her she's probably trans.
Well, but that's a
you
different
can't
thing.
try. But I'm saying that's part of this overall picture. Like we can't look at it like these are the same institutions we had 20 years ago. They can be trusted. They're fair, and they never really were. There were always enormous problems with social services and child welfare and the foster system. Like it was never really what it was cracked up to be. This just kind of adds a new dimension to it. One thing in that Anna interview I found very, very interesting, which kind of shows you how much of a bubble even people who are theoretically informed because they're newscasters live in. She mentions that she had just discovered Jonathan Haidt, who wrote what is kind of a seminal book examining some of what we're talking about here. He wrote a book called The Coddling of the American Mind, where analyzing a lot of these modern social justice ideologies from the perspective of cognitive behavioral therapy. Basically, the book makes the argument a lot of these ideas encourage a type of thinking that is deeply unhealthy. It's basically the kind of thinking that cognitive behavioral therapy is designed to help you overcome. Catastrophizing, reading, thinking that you can read people's thoughts and make assumptions about what they believe, seeing yourself as a victim. That's a really kind of key book in this conversation. And the fact that she had just discovered it said a lot. You know, they've been in this bubble. They've been in the bubble that book is addressing. That book is addressing how we got here. And its core argument is the idea they flipped what doesn't kill you makes you stronger and turned it into what doesn't kill you makes you weaker. That's an entire section of the book. Like, hey, one of the reasons not to upset RFK, there could very well be other reasons, but one of the reasons peanut allergies are exploding, they found in studies, is non-exposure. They took infants who were most likely to get peanut allergies because they had eczema and other comorbidities, and they gave them peanuts. And then they didn't give the control group peanuts, and lo and behold, the control group wound up with peanut allergies to a much greater extent than the ones that had been exposed. And Haidt argues we've done that with ideas. We've done that with debate. We've done that with exposure to things that we don't like, philosophies, attitudes, types of people. We've developed this idea within our educational institutions and within a lot of families that exposing children to anything painful is traumatizing, whereas trauma used to mean very extreme, being in war, rape, right? Now you apply it to somebody said something mean to you or you had a bad experience at a job. You know, it's not trauma. And when you start treating it that way, you create an entire generation of people that don't know how to cope with reality and don't know how to cope with disagreement and don't know how to cope with nuance. That's why if you look at what Anna's saying here, setting aside her history and being, you know, she's not saying anything that a normal person would find unreasonable. That was why when I put together that montage, I wanted to show her lead in where she's saying, yes, trans people should have health care and should not be discriminated against, should not have employment discrimination. She's specifically talking about things that there are very few people who are going to disagree with the points she's making on this.
Yeah, no, indeed. And on the question of, is this a sincere pivot? Is there a grift? I think with Anna, it's more sincere. I think this is probably true. It's certainly true with Cenk and probably true maybe to a slightly lesser extent with Anna. It's not that they are totally sincere in this shift. I think they were perfectly happy to grift off of this movement until it became very obvious to them that they weren't going to be able to keep it going. Like once they saw that the tide was turning, they're like, okay, we would grift off of it if we could, but we can't.
You don't think it was her assault was like her origin story?
No, for
like,
her,
you don't
like
buy
I said,
that?
No, I think that was, well, yeah, that's an origin story of sorts. But I'm talking about with the trans stuff, right, and Cenk. Because just a few days ago, he was making the same arguments that now he's not making anymore, and he's getting all this shit for it. I think when it becomes apparent that you're not going to be able to keep it going is when you kind of make the choice, okay, we have to stop. With her, in her case, it is more sincere because she was pushing back on him in that segment there.
Right.
All right, let's take some super chats, and then we got to run because we got work today. It's morning.
Well, you do.
I do. I got to work. I got to go work the lunch rush after this. But thank you guys very much. You guys are very generous with your super chatting, and that really helps us a tremendous amount. Slickback Russell, ready to roll. Thank you, Mosaic. Appreciate it. K Nuts. Glad I can catch you live. Here's $10. Thank you so much. Are you one of our viewers from the other side of the pond as well? A lot of people catching us live for the first time. Philosophical Thirstworms. Thanks for the $5. Elon made Japanese Twitter usable. Old Twitter had this random Japanese lib decide everything trending topic in Japan, no matter how unpopular. Okay, so you're in Japan. See? Now we have people from all over being able to watch. Thank you so much. That's interesting to know.
Let me just mention in regards to, I forgot to mention it. Some people are saying that the threads is giving you a warning when you decide to follow like a conservative. Like, are you sure you want to follow this person? They have spread disinformation in the past. So I don't know if it's true. I've heard it in more than one source, though.
All right. Interesting. Maybe we'll follow up on that. Scott Cove, thanks for the $5. Russell's wrong about MMT and hyperinflation. Get Steve Grumbine. Yeah, Steve Grumbine is on Jordan's show a lot, so I'm sure he loves us.
Yeah. We'll have them both on.
Yeah, we'll have them both on. Yeah, right. Let's have them both on. We'll read up. The MMT is something we've been asked, just like RFK, we've been asked to read up on MMT before. So I'll put that on the list. That sounds interesting. Philosophical Thirstworm. Step 1, it's not happening. Step 2, it's only happening in a tiny amount. Why do you care? Step 3, it's happening, but that's a good thing. It happens literally every single time. I mean, this is part of the moral sort of confusion. This is what Lance fell into when he was debating Tim Pool. He was like, well, do you believe in like super late term terminations? And he said, well, it's a woman's body, so she has the right to abort a baby in the late term, but it doesn't happen. Okay, well, are you saying you don't care enough about it because it doesn't happen often enough for you to care? Or are you saying that it should happen and therefore the frequency is kind of irrelevant? Once you admit that you believe it's right or good, or in this case, permissible, at that point, the frequency is kind of irrelevant because you've already made a principled stand on whether it's intrinsically permissible or not. Right. So, I think that's an interesting point. Thank you very much. Willie. Thanks, Willie. For the $5, TYT owes Jimmy Dore, Gray Zone, Glenn Greenwald, and Brianna Joy Gray an apology for smearing them for being right-wing when TYT is to their right. Yeah, that's an excellent point because, and we made that point, I think, on the last show. What day is today? Friday? Yeah, Wednesday. Yeah, we made that point on the last show that, they have smeared a lot of these people in the same way that they're being smeared now by their own audience. Like the audience is treating Anna right now just as they would treat Brianna or Jimmy or Glenn or Max or Aaron or anybody. Right? Yep. They're getting that exact same treatment because they stepped out of line. And what did you see? You just saw Cenk Uygur in that clip we just showed. Oh, he's just saying he wants to raise his kids because he hates gay people. That's what that means. I would like to be able to raise my children the way I want without intervention from the state is code for I hate gay people, according to Cenk. According to him just a few days ago, right?
What about Scientologists?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, they're not motivated by hatred of gay people, although there are rumors. But
there are rumors.
They have an awful lot of gay celebrities.
They said people are saying a lot of things. People are saying.
Yeah.
You hear it. Both pieces of paper were in fact black. Rachel Dolezal. Thank you for the $5. That's very kind of you. We appreciate that.
At Cenk, he really loves to call people monsters. That's one of his favorite things in his bloviating rants.
Monster.
You're a monster if you believe that.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Yeah, you're right. I guess this is what I'm asking by bringing up the height thing. Yes, they rode that wave, but how much are they a product of it as well? And I think part of this split might be one of the things Haidt points out is in the literature. It really starts to take off with Gen Z. The millennials are kind of the last generation that didn't grow up with cell phones and the internet. So they don't find that they're quite this way. So they're in between. I mean, as you'd expect, they're between literally and figuratively Gen Xers and Gen Zers. So it seems like, yeah, they rode that wave of, language is violence and you're a monster and all that shit. But it seems like, at least for Anna, the contradictions in it became too much. Jank, yeah, man, he's always updated that channel based on which way he feels like the wind is blowing.
Of course. Yeah,
but with her, it seems like she got red pilled a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's Jank's baby. It's not really her baby, right? So, I think that's a big difference too. Diablo Neruda, thank you for the $9.99. I love that name. I tried to discuss the TRA question with Brie on her call-in show a few months back, and she hung up on me twice. Interesting. I think it makes her deeply uncomfortable. We'll send Russell a link via Twitter later. Yeah, we'd be interested to see. You mean to the episode? Because we got a couple people in our Patreon community, shall we say, I won't blow anybody's cover, who have tried to put us in touch with Brie to talk about this stuff on the air. Like, the whole left infighting thing was a conversation I'd have much rather had with Brianna than with Jordan.
Right.
Because Brianna's in better standing with a lot of our space than Jordan is, for good reason. I think she's easier to talk to than Jordan, obviously, and so I would have loved to have had her on. She did not get the person who tried to run point for us and make that happen. She did not. She just never answered, which is why I got to say, as contentious as the talk with Jordan was, I give him props for coming here, because Brianna would totally blow us off. I don't think Katie Halper would give us the time of day either. So, that's just the way it goes. But thank you for the donation. And yeah, we'd be interested in seeing that. Arthur, thanks for the $10. When Mike referenced Anna talking about the athlete that was barricaded, you talk about Riley Gaines, he dismissed it by saying, you can't tell activists who feel threatened how to protest. Well, yeah, there's all kinds of shit like that. Oh,
wow. Did he say that?
There's that. There's also the Vanguard saying, well, yeah, I mean, sometimes protesters or people get silly and over the top. Just a complete dismissal of the fact that there was a hate mob chasing after this girl, cornering them in a room for 3 hours, which is what Anna referenced as well. In a tweet of hers.
I mean, it's amazing how much the left, even down to the ACLU, have completely lost the concept of, if you apply this logic to them, they can apply it to you.
Right, exactly, yeah. Exactly. Big Cat's Corner. Very generous donation. Morning Dew with JOO. Love the additional showtime, gentlemen. Well, thank you. This was a very successful launch. We appreciate you all being here. Thank you for the generous donations. It went really well. Thanks to you guys. Yeah. Got to listen during my morning workout and run. Keep up the great work. Well, I hope you had a good workout. Thank you. Yes, thank you so much for the donation. Maurior Kiri, watching from Barcelona. Appreciate the early morning stream. See, there we go. Nice. Beautiful. From all over the place. Thank you so much.
Make it rain euros, baby.
Yeah.
Euros and yen today.
Yeah, exactly. Sergio Cantu, thanks for the $3. We appreciate that. And Dave Della Rye. Michael Hudson has worked with Stephanie Kelton and has written a few books about debt, MMT, economics. Thank you. The Kelton book seems to be the really foundational one, so we'll do that.
I'll get
first.
It on Audible. I'll listen
and then we'll
to
go
it on my bike rides.
Alrighty, folks. Well, that is our show today. Want to thank you all very, very much for being here. It was an extremely successful launch. 620 on YouTube, 130 watching over there on Rumble. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button on your way out on Rumble. Hit that follow button. We're up over 1,000 Rumble followers now, which is terrific. That's great. That's what we love to see. Thank you, everybody over on Rockfin as well. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. And we will be back Sunday night at 7 p.m. You can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents, DoDissidents.substack.com. Members really help make these streams possible. You can also support us through YouTube by hitting that join button underneath the screen. What a great first stream, huh? This really went very, very well.
Yeah.
First morning stream, Morning Dew, off to a good start.
I thought it would do all right, but not that all right. Like, we did like a good audience.
Oh, and yeah, excellent audience. You guys were a great crowd. Thank you so much for your support. Really great to see you all here. We'll see you back at our regular time slot Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Until then, be safe and be well.
Courage.
Please clap.